Good evening. Welcome to Bobby's Hobby House. I'm Terry Bobby, and this evening I have as a guest my son Michael Bobby. Makes it sound like this is all in the family kind of a deal, and it's in fact a family business. Michael, you've been building models for some time now. About how long have you been doing this?
About 14 years, I think.
Okay, and what we want to talk about tonight is...
This is going to be plastic modeling techniques and hints and tips and things for building better plastic models and improving the plastic models that you're working on.
Okay, what's the reason for building plastic models to begin with?
Well, a lot of people think that plastic models are just something you give at birthday parties or something to kids, but they can mean a whole lot more. There's lots of personal reasons, like if you've flown an aircraft or something, if you were in the Navy, or if one of your relatives, your father or brother or son was in the Navy, or in any other branch of the armed forces there, and has flown a plane, you can build a model of that plane, or a car, if you have a favorite car like that. Or if you'd like to become a pilot, you might build a plane of like a lot of people are building F-14s now because of the Top Gun movie and things like that, where they've learned a lot about that, and they would like to build a model of it.
Okay, and Pensacola is a very strong aviation neighborhood. We have, in fact, in this area quite a number of retired naval aviators who are, in some cases, listed in the reference materials that we have here in the shop. I'd like to mention those reference materials for a moment.
Okay, on the general things of how to do different improving your plastic models, they have the Comback line is a really good line of books on doing these things. There's several books on just an introduction in general of plastic models and how to do them. We have a few of those here.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's not a shake the box and squirt the glue on it and have a model come out.
There's a never-ending number of things that you can do to improve your models, and no matter how far you think you've gotten to improving your models, there's always more you can do to it.
Okay. Some of the models that we've brought in this evening that you see on the table here in front of us are built by a number of our customers. The large F-14 that you mentioned in the Top Gun series, this large gray model is one that's built by Bill Nix. Bill has described to us this afternoon that this model is not complete, and yet I can see little tiny wires and things inside the cockpit. There are mirrors, the rear view mirrors, the CRT scope, the radar scope, the hold downs for the canopy. There's just an incredible amount of detail, and Bill said he's only about 80% down the line as far as completing this. What else is he going to do?
I've shown him a few more of the reference materials that we have. We just got in a brand new book on F-14s. And there's just an amazing number of books on the different materials like that.
Okay. We also have some brand new models that have just come in recently. The one that made a lot of headlines in the past year, of course, was the F-19 Stealth airplane. That made some national and international headlines. We've got some of those built up here on the table. That'll work out nicely. This aircraft is one that the Air Force denied that exists, and yet I understand Testers has a patent on the design since the Air Force denied it, and that's going to be an interesting thing coming down the road. And then tonight we also have one of the new F-18 Blue Angel models. This is the model we have here. This is the brand new airplane that the Blue Angels they're flying already, and already the model manufacturers, two of the companies have released their F-18 Blue Angel models already, and
a third on the way.
There are more coming. Okay, so some of these, as usual, are coming in from Japan, some from the United States manufacturers. So this has been a really exciting year for model aviation. What else do we have to look forward to?
Okay, I also have the latest in the Soviet technology. We have in the MiG-29, which is the latest Soviet fighter. And we've gotten in two different companies for making these, and I have one of those in stock right now. And this is that kit.
In the aviation training area, I noticed a poster on one occasion that had a MiG-25 on it, and it said to know your competition. I don't know if we've heard any complaints from the Russian embassy about the model makers producing the latest Soviet equipment, but I've noticed a lot of people in the aviation program that are buying these models, and they're going to be very familiar with it beforehand. An ounce of prevention, I suppose. We've mentioned the research things. There are a lot of research type equipment that's out there. What kind of supplies, what does it take to build a plastic model?
Well, you can start off with very basic tools. And to start off with, you don't need a whole lot. If you're looking for gift ideas for a youngster who's just getting into plastic modeling, or of any age that's just getting into plastic modeling, there is a basic set from Testers that is really great. It comes with some of the basic colors in the paint and some paint brushes and a knife and sandpaper. And one of the most important things is a drop cloth for protecting the table. We've got just some paper on this table to help protect it. But this one comes with a plastic drop cloth, which helps keep from, if you spilled any paint.
Okay, for young people, spilling. This will enhance your life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
You're on Bobby's Hobby House. You're on Bobby's Hobby House. Okay.
Certain model?
I'm sorry, do that again.
I'm looking for a certain model, an LVT P7A1. It's an armored amphibious tractor that Marines use, and I haven't been able to find it in any hobby stores. I wonder if you know where I could find one.
Are you familiar with this?
Okay, I believe that Nitto may make one of those in 1/35th scale, or else it will be out later in this year. I believe I've heard something about that coming out. If you'll come and check with me at the shop, then I can try and dig through my catalogs and find it for you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Right, thank you. This is one of the interesting things that comes up. We find that not every model, or not every aircraft, nor every ship, nor every automobile that was ever made, is there a model of it. So there are some things that we do miss as we go along. What about, we've mentioned the paints. There are a lot of different kinds of paints.
There are several different ways of doing the paints. We have a couple of different lines of paints and stuff here. We have an acrylic line and an enamel line, which I have to show here. These are three of the there are two of the different ones you can use. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of enamels and acrylic-based paints. The acrylic-based paints are becoming more widely used because of the non-toxic side of it, where you don't have the dangerous fumes and things when you're airbrushing, which is just becoming more and more of a concern. It's been in a recent Model Magazine article.
Okay. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
My toughest problem is keeping the glue from getting on the plastic canopy. Can you give us some tips on how to make sure the glue stays where it's supposed to stay?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a number of different types of glues that we'd like to show you. The traditional type, the one that everybody's really familiar with, is the traditional old tube cement. The tube cement has a number of problems. Usually the hole in the end of it is so big that you get a lot more glue out than you really meant to. So this is one of the problems with the glue, particularly in the hands of youngsters. I think the feeling that if a little bit of glue is good, a whole lot ought to be great. And with plastic, that's not the case, because this glue works by melting the plastic together. This one tube of glue has got the possibility of building a dozen average models, so that works out pretty well. The second type glue that we have is a liquid cement. The liquid cement is a little neater. It evaporates quickly. It's great for doing the two halves together, and that's a good job there. We also have some instant bond glues, and on the instant bond glues, we have, those are used primarily in places where you're attaching a canopy, or not a canopy, a landing gear, a radio antenna, something that needs to be fastened quickly and stably. And finally, on the canopy, there's Elmer's glue, good old traditional milk-based glue. The neatest thing about that is it dries clear. Now, on most of the other glues, even the fumes from the glue can cause that canopy to frost over and begin melting. Where the Elmer's glue, even if you get it in the wrong place, it dries clear, and that works out quite well. In the second half of the program, we're going to be showing you another one of the larger models, and in the case of larger models, the two-part epoxy mixes work quite well. This is for wing center sections where a great deal of strength is needed. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Hello, my question is, I was wondering, is there a way to display the models after you build them that can keep them from being broken very easily? Because I have a lot of problems with after I get a model built, have it hanging from my ceiling or on a shelf or something. It always seems to get broken some way or another. You have any suggestions?
Sure.
One of the best things you can possibly do is put it in a bulletproof case so nobody can touch it, but those are scarce. Mothers and little brothers and cats in particular, sometimes dogs, are really tough on these things. So one of the things you like to try to do, hanging it from the ceiling generally is a really good idea. Once in a while, something goes badly with that. Now, we're going to talk in the second half about some ways to display those, but if you can get it under glass, that's the very best thing. Find some kind of a glass bookcase, or that's really the best way to protect it. Mothers, well-meaning mothers, bless their hearts, they want to come out and dust everything, and that's an awkward thing to do. If you're going to dust it, it takes a fine camel hair brush, something very soft to do it. But the best thing to do there, particularly for you young men who are building the models and the fathers or whoever, dust your own models. Don't give the wives a chance to do it. Okay, we have, you're on Bobby's Hobby House.
I would like to know, do you sell 76 Sevelles?
I'm sorry, do that again?
76 Sevelles.
No, sir, I'm afraid 76 was a great year, but I don't have any of them left. Appreciate the call.
Okay.
Okay. This is one of the cases where not every car that has ever been made is still in print. That's like going down to the Cadillac dealership and trying to buy a brand new 76 automobile. Okay. You're on Bobby's Hobby House. Well, you're not really. Okay, we've got a couple of things going through here. Michael, you're going to show how we cut the plastic apart.
Okay. When you first pull the model out of the box, you want to make sure that you keep all the parts together and keep them in the box. That's going to be very important because there's often a lot of small pieces that may become detached in shipping and other things like that that can fall off. And if you keep them all in the box, you can keep them together there. Okay, when you pull it out, and you're going to start work, what we're going to discuss here is fastening fuselage halves. And when you take them off, this nice little pair of wire cutters here, this is really good for taking these off. And you can just clip it on the sprue here a little farther out. You don't want to get too close to the model because then you might take a chunk out of the fuselage.
Okay, that prevents tearing the plastic. Okay, while you're cutting that free, we're going to talk to another person here. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yes, I like making battle scenes with my models.
Right.
And I was wondering how you make the planes look like the missiles are firing right off the thing.
That they're using the guns and that sort of thing?
Yeah, the missiles and all that.
Okay, let me hit that on the line here. Launching missiles, I've seen a pretty nice display that used a piece of wire and it put the missile out ahead of the model, and then for the smoke behind it they used cotton stretched out along the wire, and that hid the wire and it was fastened to the airplane. That was a pretty interesting display. For the gun smoke kind of affairs, a little bit of airbrush work judiciously can be done to give you a weathered gun smoke kind of appearance on that. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yes, I'm interested in starting model airplanes. What's the best way to get started? What are some of the easiest kits to get started with? I'll hang up and listen.
All right. As far as the easiest kits, particularly for young beginners, one of the things that works out quite well there is some of the snap-together models. Now, there comes a time when you discuss age. I think more than age is the interest level of the young person. If they're really interested, sometimes they start earlier than they might otherwise. They're varying levels. One of the things that you're going to find just as far as interest level is you want to find something, if you're building it yourself, that you're interested in. And my best suggestion there is just to stop by the shop and talk to us. We can give you some clues in the shop about how difficult a kit might be, or things to watch for if you'll stop by and do that. We're going to head and take a break now, and we'll come back in the second half and see how far we can go with that. Thank you very much. Okay, we're back, and we've changed the whole scene here a little bit. We've got a couple of diorama models, and someone mentioned earlier they like to make the war-type scenes. And we've got two of those on the tabletop here. These two were built by Bob Martin. Bob has been one of our return Pensacola Interstate Fair entry people, and these are some of the work that he did last year. I believe he did both of these last year in the fair. So this is one of the things that can be done with your models to make a scene incorporating the models and going on with that. So that works out pretty well. Okay, we've got How did you come? Are you putting those two halves together still?
Oh yeah, I'm still working on these two halves of the fuselage. Okay, when you're about to glue it, you want to make sure you test fit it, make sure everything fits together well. Sometimes in the molds they do have warpage and stuff, and you need to check on that. Okay, on fastening the fuselage like this, you'll notice that sometimes when you build the kit, you'll have it stretch apart when you're trying to glue it. And the way you help keep it from doing that is to use rubber bands. And you can stretch the rubber bands around it. Usually glue this first, since I'm just pulling this out of the box. I'm not going to glue it here, but I'm just going to show you. Wrapping the rubber bands around the different parts here.
While we're comparing these two, these are both the same aircraft type. The one Michael's holding is a 1/72nd scale, and the larger one in the foreground here is 1/48 scale, which gives you a size comparison. Most of the models these days are coming in constant scales, and these two are two of the more popular scales.
Okay, you also have the tail may come apart some, and rubber bands are all right, but you can also use clothespins, and those are nice and handy and easy to find. Okay, now he's going to demonstrate a little bit of airbrushing here on the larger C-130 for us.
Okay, we've prepared this a little bit ahead of time, and what I wanted to show is just the airbrush tool. Now, we showed airbrushing a few weeks ago with Dale Boyd. Dale was doing T-shirts at the time, and we are using the polyester or the acrylic type paints here. And one of the delightful things about this is how thin the paint goes on and how quickly it dries. And then one of the other things is how realistic the coverage can be. If you want the feathered edge, particularly on camouflage models, this gives you a very nice feathered edge. About the only way to get a real hard edge is if you go back and mask. Now, I'm going to hear some feedback on this particular aircraft. Okay, here we go. On this particular aircraft, this is one some of you remember that I started at the fair how many years ago? Sometimes when we're out at the model contest, waiting around for people to come in and ask questions, we build models as we go. But this is one that I started, I guess, a couple of years ago, and I may finish it. It's one of those kind of things. But the airbrush, as far as I'm concerned, is the greatest thing since glue. It gives you the opportunity to do some very realistic paint jobs, some weathering, and just have a good time. In fact, the initial tendency for a person with a brand new airbrush is to stop and paint everything that holds still for a few minutes. Just one of the tools that can be used.
One of the other things you can do with an airbrush, there's a new line of paints out with a metal finish, and it's the Metalizer series. And I've done this small plane today in the Metalizer series. It's still a little bit wet here. This stuff is a metal flake, and it will flake off here. But also on this, I've got some of the masking. I've used masking tape, just the magic transparent tape, to mask off my canopy here. And I put it over the entire canopy and trimmed it off where the canopy frames are, so that when I airbrushed it, the frames would be painted, and I can peel this off and still get the clear part on the canopy.
Keep it right.
I've also used a little bit of masking by putting paper towels into the little air intakes here, because I had already painted those and didn't want to have to paint them all over again. And
that's how you get the nice hard edge, though, is by doing the masking. Damp Techinics sometimes works out quite well on that. Okay, we have a call here. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yes, do you sell the Royal British Harrier too?
Yes, we do. We have the Harrier in several versions now.
Oh, yeah.
That's been a particularly popular airplane, and particularly in this naval aviation community.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Okay, you're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yes, I'd like to know if you have the F-14 and 1/72nd scale.
I have the new Italorite Top Gun, Tester's Italorite Top Gun F-14 is the only one I have in 1/72nd scale right now.
Can I ask how much it costs?
I believe it's $10.
Okay, thank you.
Right. One of the things that we're finding on a lot of the import kits, when we look at just plain brand names, a lot of the American brand names you'll find are a particularly good buy because they're not paying import duties on it. The monogram models for young people are quite good. It's a good buy, and they have a reputation for the parts fitting well. Some of the Hasegawa, the Tamiya, some of the Japanese kits are probably some of the finest models in the world these days. They're going to the new photo etch brass parts to give you those canopy locks and hold downs and instrument panels that some of the guys are finding such a delight in. Okay. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
I was wanting to know what would be the best way to set up a B-17 scene, the crash landing.
The crash landing.
Yes.
Okay. Some of these pieces that we have on the countertop up here are made from styrofoam, the diorama base. And just junk styrofoam insulation or radio packing. Now, they've been covered usually with a celluclay paper mache. It gives you the opportunity to really let your imagination run away. Now, this is also an excellent opportunity in the case of, say your mom dusted your model and knocked it off on the floor, and parts of it broke. Some of them are not going to be able to be replaced. This is a great opportunity to take that model and then make a crash diorama out of it, something that had parts missing. You'll find in a lot of the reference books we have up at the shop some real good information for doing the crashes. One of those in particular is a crash that I think it's a Navy or Japanese aircraft that's in the water. Now, water is particularly difficult to model, but this gives you some clues on that. You saw a moment ago the Valvoline car. This is built by Robbie Martin. He was our Best of Show junior winner this past year in the fair. How old is Robbie now?
I believe he's 15 now.
Robbie's about 15. The closer you get to this model, the better it looks. There are ignition wires, and I'm told that those ignition wires are in the correct firing order. There's the small antenna, the NASCAR inspection sticker on the windshield. This young man is very fluent in this type of car model building, and I would rate him as one of the experts in town. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yeah, I was building a car, and I'm wondering, as far as modifying it, how do you go about getting scratch pieces like of plastic so you can add modifications to a car? Like I'm taking mine, it's originally a coupe, and I'm making it into a convertible.
All right.
In the super detailing the cars especially, we do have a whole line of sheet styrene that you can use for the major sections of modification like that. There's also a few new lines of car parts out. I've got my detail parts around here somewhere. We have the photo etched brass detail parts in a lot of different things. We have them for some of the aircraft, and then we have the cars and ship models.
Okay.
Lots of different things.
This is a new trend in the plastic model building, are these detail parts. Okay, you're on Bobby's Hobby House. All right. Some of the new parts, some of the other plastic model building techniques, some of the modifications on the cars, we mentioned there's some tools over in our tool department. There's a razor saw. If you're making a convertible out of a hardtop car, the razor saw is an excellent tool for cutting that out very carefully. Some people have used a hot knife blade in order to do the same kind of thing, but there can be some pretty radical things. I believe on Robbie's car, I don't think the trunk normally opens, and his is modeled with the trunk open.
He opened it with a jeweler's saw, I believe.
Right. You're on Bobby's Hobby House.
Yes, sir. I was wondering when you're going to come up with a model of Rambo or somebody.
Got it. There's a Rambo helicopter on the shelf right now. That's a particularly good model, and that's working out quite well. Okay. Some of the other dioramas that we've had up here are, one of the intents on this is to kind of tell a story, and a lot of the research material, going back looking in some of the research books, is an excellent way. Some of the old Time Life photograph pieces on the war times works out quite well. This diorama part of the hobby is one of those categories that we try to encourage people out to at the fair contest. And we've been sponsoring a model contest out at the fair. There's no entry fee. You don't have to swear that your models came from our favorite hobby shop, and we'll have a full sheet of rules available by the 1st of August. So that fair is coming in October. That's not too early to start building models, and I know a number of model builders who are currently working on those secret projects that they don't want to tell anything about, and would like for you to look forward to June 17th. That's 2 weeks down the road. We'll be doing a wedding floral fashion. This is going to be an interesting show. This isn't something I know a lot about, but I'm going to learn a lot, and you're welcome to come. Okay. This is making your own floral bouquets and accessories. You can save money and be creative all at the same time. We've enjoyed having you by Bobby's Hobby House tonight. If you have further questions and curiosities and want to stop by the shop, we'll be there most every day. We work Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6, and we'll be glad to help answer any questions that you have in the hobby line. Thank you very much for visiting Bobby's Hobby House.
Hospitality business.